Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. I'm sitting in the backyard of my Portland, Oregon permaculture garden in Zone 8B. I'm sitting underneath my hazel tree in my U-shaped sun trap, which is part of the polyculture food forest design here. I am going to talk a little bit today about what happens when you are a very niche, small-time YouTuber or educator who has a fairly small audience, although I appreciate all of you very much, and then something that you have done or made goes viral. And I'd also like to fold that into a little bit of a discussion of the permaculture ethic of people care. So a documentary film company called Leaf of Life made a meme out of before and after pictures of my garden and shared it. They asked my permission first, and I said yes, that they could. I wish they had linked to my YouTube, but that's okay. And before I knew it, this post went viral. It's shared many hundreds of times all over Facebook. It gets thousands and thousands and thousands of comments when it's shared. That is something I have never experienced before, and for me it's been a really difficult 2 days as I have been unable to help myself. When I have seen it shared, I have looked at the comments and engaged, because as an ever hopeful idealist, I want folks to get excited about permaculture. I want folks to realize that they can step in and engage in a more sustainable way of living, however they feel able. And so I want to come in and be like a cheerleader and answer people's questions and like thumbs up and say encouraging things when they drop photos of their gardens. They're like, yes, I'm doing something similar. Here's a picture of my garden. Like, I just want to be an encourager because I'm so passionate about permaculture and because I get so much joy out of my garden. And it's really heartbreaking for me to see the way that people comment on these posts. So when we bought our house, this yard was nothing but sod and a stand of invasive bamboo along the fence line that took me 3 years to remove, digging it out little by little, all those big chunks of rhizomes, and a split ornamental plum tree, and then just like a bunch of weeds. It was a very sunny yard. We were on a very limited budget. We had a very short time span to buy a house, and my number one priority was a sunny yard without a large tree in it that would be difficult to garden around. I wanted to do permaculture design. So although the house needed a lot of work, although it was in a neighborhood we had originally not considered living in, it turned out that this is a wonderful neighborhood, and I love my neighbors, and I love my yard, and I love my home. But my main focus was the biggest yard we could afford with lots of sun. Because let's face it, so many yards in Portland have very large conifer trees, and it makes it incredibly difficult to do food forest design in a yard like that. With a big tree that soaks up all the water, you have a ton of dry shade, very difficult to garden in. I did not want that. So I got the yard I wanted. I knew it was a lot of work. Very slowly, as time and money allowed, I transformed the garden from just sod and weeds to a lush permaculture food forest system where I have a rain garden, I have an annual veggie garden. It started out as more like a potager garden and had more of a little bit of an ornamental design, and it's gotten more relaxed and organic as the years have gone on. I have a food forest in the front. We took out half our driveway a few years ago and added more garden, which also fixed the issue of water running into our basement when we did that. And this U-shaped orchard around the perimeter of the garden protected and allowed me to maintain a sunny spot in the middle of the backyard for growing annuals. I also have a chicken coop. I also have beehives for which I have permits for both our poultry and our bees. And I really love my garden. It's a labor of love. It's something I'm really passionate about. And I try to be really honest and real on this channel about the struggles that I have, about when things don't go as you plan, when real life gets in the way, because I feel like there's so many gardening channels or so many gardening bloggers that present a very rosy picture of what permaculture, sustainable agriculture, prepping is. I'm not a prepper, but all of that kind of genre, there can be very like, let's put on our rose-colored glasses when we are talking about these things. So I try to be very real about what works, what doesn't, what struggles I have, what I get out of it, what the benefits are. We ran a gardening project for a food bank in East Portland here for almost 10 years until my mother got sick with cancer and then I had to stop. We have an Honesty Farm stand and we share produce out of that when we can and plant starts. This garden is just such an important part of my life. So when something that is so precious to me is shared on social media and goes viral, and the comments are things like, your yard looks like a mess, looks like a house in foreclosure, looks like something from a bad neighborhood in Detroit, it looks terrible, it looked better when it was just sod, it looks like shit. Those kinds of comments are deeply painful and hurtful because this is something I'm very fond of and attached to. And psychologically, it's very hard because I know that people say if you put something out on the internet, then you should just be ready. You should just it's open season on you if you put something out on the internet, like you're asking for it, which is not true. And I do know the internet is a really toxic place. I do know there are a lot of very sad and insecure people who try and make themselves feel less small by trying to make other people feel bad about their lives. So I do understand that. It's also very hard to have those comments not impact me a lot. And I know that some folks are just looking for the opportunity to say something hateful because they feel really sad about their own selves and their own lives. And for me, I had to walk away earlier today. I'm actually sitting in the garden and I'm drinking a cup of yuzu cider, which is wonderful. And just sitting here and staring at the raspberry patch behind me and just trying to have some quiet time because it was so distressing for me to read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments, more than 90% from men, about that they thought my garden sucked. And they thought it was ugly and they thought it was terrible, poorly designed. So in permaculture, we say that the problem is the solution. And as I've been sitting here staring at my garden, enjoying the late evening light filtering through the leaves, and it just looks really beautiful. I don't care that it's been 104 degrees today. Right now, everything is just, it's perfect. As I'm thinking about the problem as the solution, I'm trying to think how that applies to this situation. I would love your thoughts about how that applies to this situation because it can feel really difficult in the moment to just be anything other than discouraged. For me, I see the fact that so many, particularly men, feel the need to just say really mean, let's on purpose choose the most unkind things we can possibly say. Let's weaponize our language for maximum harmful impact. For to a stranger on the internet, and then feel like we're entitled to do that because we have the barrier of a keyboard between us, and that makes us feel big and protected and safe so that we can lash out in that way. To me, that says, particularly as the parent of 4 kids, 2 of whom are boys, that we have a lot of work to do. That points me to the need for the way we parent our sons to change in our culture, that we need to teach our boys emotional literacy, consent, safe boundaries and communication. We need to teach our boys to be okay with who they are, that they can feel emotions other than rage and insecurity and lust, that we can teach our boys that there's a different way to be a man in the world, and that you don't make yourself bigger and you don't make yourself better by trying to bring other people down. So for me, the problem is the solution. When I'm seeing, again, the vast majority of the comments are from men, when I'm seeing those kind of comments, it just redoubles my efforts to continue to communicate and parent my 11-year-old and my 14-year-old in a way that helps them grow into men who do things differently, who don't engage this way with other people, who learn to love themselves and therefore love other people, who learn to care for other people and care for themselves. Permaculture ethic number 2 is care for people. That includes learning how to love and care for yourself so that you don't weaponize your sad, lonely, upset, insecure feelings and take them out on other people. The other thing I was thinking about with the problem is the solution is that it just says to me how much more of a need there is for education about what makes a beautiful garden. I'm going to have a follow-up video to this where I address 3 or 4 criticisms that folks had based on seeing one picture of my garden. They made all kinds of sweeping judgments and like definitive statements about what must be wrong in my garden. And so I'm going to have a follow-up video to this one coming out tomorrow where I talk about those concerns and I address them and I answer them really honestly. But one of the things that I noticed in this process was just how much education we need to do about what beauty is in America. There were a few commenters from Europe, but the vast majority were from America, commenting about the fact that they think my garden is ugly or overcrowded or messy. And we have such a high need to have control over everything. We're wound so tight in our desire to control nature, and that's such an illusion. And so for me, when people say my garden is messy or untidy, like, no, I don't think it is. I just think that other gardens are experiencing an unrealistic superimposition of control by the gardener. That's exhausting and it causes problems. I prefer a much more loose, organic style of gardening, but I also prefer a kind of gardening that reduces my workload, that increases my joy, that increases the productivity of the garden. And so we need to do so much more work in educating folks about what a resilient garden looks like. What are realistic expectations for a garden that feeds your family and that increases your security? And at the same time, when we do that, we need to continue to combat the very classist and very bizarre notions in American culture that a monoculture lawn is the epitome of beauty, or a monoculture lawn with like a little row of boxwoods or other shrubs that are carefully pruned into little shapeless mounds. That is the epitome of beauty, and that projects prosperity, and that projects some kind of standard that we should all uphold. And if somebody doesn't copy that, then their garden is a mess, or it looks like a house that's abandoned, or whatever other kind of derogatory things people were saying. We need to shift our mindset away from a very antiquated notion of what pretty is that is based on a very narrow range of human experience. And we need to expand and begin to embrace a resilient way of living and designing, and see the inherent beauty in that. Not just because there's so much diversity in it, but because the organic, free-flowing nature of it is abundantly productive. It is habitat for wildlife, and it is beautiful unto itself. Natural places are not managed. Natural places have mess and chaos, and they have the whole cycle of life going on. There is no open, bare earth. There is no red bark chips that are dyed and you buy them in a plastic bag. There's no process of someone coming along and tidying up and cleaning up all of the dead material as it's decomposing and becoming fertility in the soil again. So I'll probably leave it at this. I just want to say thank you to the folks who left really kind and encouraging comments. I'm not trying to sympathy fish here. I'm just trying to be really honest that it's been a very hard couple of days. It's hard to read hundreds and hundreds of comments of people saying really mean things about something that you're passionate about, something that you care deeply about, and something that you want to share because you think it will bring joy to other people because it's brought so much joy to you. And it's hard, no matter how much you say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. It's not true. And it's very hard to just brush off those kinds of comments. But at the same time, I want to step in and engage because I want to try and normalize a garden like mine so that more people feel emboldened and impassioned to try permaculture. More people have it normalized in their communities so they aren't facing fines from HOAs. They aren't facing oppressive city ordinances that don't allow them to try and increase their food security and resilience. For me, the desire to shift the cultural norm towards sustainability is really strong, such that I'm still willing to step into those spaces. But it's also my earnest hope that folks will learn to do better, learn to be their best selves, even when engaging with strangers on the internet. In fact, especially when engaging with strangers on the internet. Sometimes I'm a little bit, we'll wait for this cop car to go by. So I know that I'm not always my best self. Nobody can be their best self 100% of the time. But thinking twice about making the conscious decision to click enter after you say something like, your garden looks like, and you never should have done this, and I wish you would put it back the way it was, and your neighbors must hate you, and you have no taste. Think twice before you say something like that. When you choose to intentionally inflict harm for no other purpose than to watch the reaction or to watch the other person be deflated by your words, think about why you are making the choice to do that. Think about what inside of you is lacking and struggling such that you feel compelled to try and bring people down instead of lift them up. Please check back tomorrow. I'm going to talk through these number of factors that folks raised, the most common concerns or assertions or false notions that people raised, saying like, her garden must have this problem, this must be going on, this can't be true. I'm going to break those down in my next video, so please come back and watch tomorrow. Thank you again to everybody who said such kind and encouraging things. There is also a Facebook group, the Parkrose Permaculture Discussion Group, that I don't run. It is run by my dear friend Trish, who actually lives in Ohio, but has helped me off and on for a long time with the tech aspects of learning how to do YouTube and learning how to run a Facebook page. And so she manages that group. I don't have anything to do with it, although I do occasionally come in and drop a couple photos or read people's posts because folks are sharing their really exciting gardening projects in that group. So if you want to find support for like-minded folks who are trying to develop more resilient gardens that perhaps don't look like the normal cultural standard, Western standard of a garden, that's a great place to go. I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching.